What is going on, WWE fans? It is WWE at Home 219 here with my friend Aaron, and we are here to review last night's Raw from October 7th, 2013. In the kickoff Raw, we'd see Stephanie McMahon call out the Big Show after what he did at Battleground. And basically, this was Stephanie McMahon being the heel that she is, and she was blaming Big Show for all the pay per view going wrong. And then she's making fun of him, saying, "Oh, you're gonna cry, Big Show." She'd basically just fire him there, right on the spot. And that was about it to this segment. It was a decent kickoff to it, but I like the way that Big Show was not being a pussy in this opening segment. That's a lot different than what we've been seeing. Average opening segment. I'll give it a C.
Yeah, it's about time that Big Show show off that he's not a giant pussy. It's been pissing me off how he's been basically the bitch of company so far, and I'm glad that he finally got away with it. And you see at the end of the episode what goes on. So I'm gonna give it a B. I actually really liked it.
And then we'd get a rematch from the pre-show at Battleground as Dolph Ziggler, the last Money in the Bank winner, taking on the current Money in the Bank holder, Damien Sandow. This, in my opinion, was better than their matchup at Battleground, but I really just don't see the point of these rematches that they did. You would see it's a constant pattern on Raw tonight, or last night, I should say. But Dolph Ziggler would pick up the win with the Famouser, and usually you don't see him put away people with the Famouser, but he did. Average matchup that I'll give a C.
Yeah, I don't know what this whole feud is accomplishing here. I want Dolph Ziggler to be in the main event picture, and maybe this is what it is, seeing as Damien Sandow is the Money in the Bank holder for the World Heavyweight Championship, so we'll see. But the match itself, I agree, was better than that Battleground. I like Dolph Ziggler a lot. I've slowly not liked Sandow. It seemed like every Raw and every SmackDown, I just keep going down and
Even
down
though
on
you
him.
picked him to win Money in the Bank.
I did, and I think at the time, he was the right guy to go with, but now I think WWE and all of us are starting to see that it wasn't the truth, so I'll give the match a B minus. Wasn't anything special, but actually wasn't bad either.
So then we get six divas tag matching as the debut of Eva Marie. You wouldn't really see JoJo getting wrestling there. She was with the Natalia though, facing Alicia Fox, Oksana, and Rosa Mendez with blonde hair. It was actually a terrible matchup. Eva Marie is very bad at wrestling. It's very unfortunate because she's very good looking, but maybe she should just go model somewhere. We'd seen Natalia pick up the win with a sharpshooter. I'm giving it an F.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I was anticipating to see how Eva Marie was because, she's really attractive, and I was really getting into it, but when she got in the ring, it was pitiful. It was really bad. Wish we would have seen JoJo because I want to see what she's got. Maybe she's something else, but overall, match F. Couldn't agree more.
So then Los Matadores would face 3MB, Ole. And I was kind of expecting a Drew McIntyre face turn here because there's been a lot of speculation. He's been tweeting on his Twitter that he's kind of getting tired of this. I don't blame him. I think Drew McIntyre would benefit off that face turn. But, I mean, this matchup was nothing special as we see Los Matadores pick up the win for the second time on Raw. I'll give it a D.
Yeah, I was really hoping that Drew McIntyre would split from 3MB because I think he's one of the three who actually has a good amount of potential. He can actually do something with himself. I hate the Los. I can't stand Los Matadores. Not a fan. That bull pisses me off. It ruins everything that they try to accomplish. I hate the whole gimmick. I give the match an F, just to waste my time.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. So then Curtis Axel, Ryback, and Paul Heyman would come out basically just saying that Paul Heyman's the best in the world, keeps bringing up the fact that he pinned CM Punk at SummerSlam. Then Punk would come out himself saying he's going to get his hands on both these men. And then R-Truth randomly would come out of nowhere and say, hey, let's just face these guys in a tag matchup. So that's exactly what happened as R-Truth would team up with CM Punk to face Axel and Ryback. It wasn't a terrible matchup. I really am a big fan of this Punk versus Heyman feud that they got going on. But I feel like it's time to start ending this feud as it looks like Ryback's probably going to face CM Punk at Hell in the Cell. Not too fond of that myself. But like I said, this matchup wasn't terrible as R-Truth picks up the victory here as he gets Curtis Axel with his finish here. I'll give it a C+.
Yeah, I like the Punk Heyman feud, but I think with the whole Ryback, it needs to stop. I think you can kind of see in CM Punk's wrestling, especially, that he doesn't want to be in this. I don't think anyone else wants to see him with Ryback. He doesn't want to be with Ryback. He's a main event. He's main event. He is the guy right now. Him and Daniel Bryan are the guys. They need to be in the main event. He needs to be in something better. So they need to get him out of here. But the match itself actually wasn't bad. R-Truth actually showing some relevancy of late, so we'll see how that goes. I give the match a B minus, nothing too special, but CM Punk feud with Ryback needs to stop.
So then the former WWE champion Randy Orton would face Kofi Kingston. Not really much of a match here. It had some cool spots, but Kofi just couldn't seem to get any offense going as Randy Orton would pick up the win with the RKO as he continues his momentum going into Hell in a Cell, which we know he will face Daniel Bryan in a cell. Wasn't a huge fan of this matchup, though. The only good spot really in this was that scoot slam when Kofi was jumping back into the ring. I'll give it a C, kind of just like the average of these matches that happen on Raw.
Yeah, even of late with Daniel Bryan, I think any match now that Randy Orton's been in, it's kind of becoming a little predictable. If Randy has a match on Raw, it's not with Daniel Bryan. I expect him to win. And this match right here, I thought it was very, very boring for the majority of the time. The scoop slam, like Kyle said, was really cool, but for the most part, it was a pretty boring match. I'm going to give it a C minus. Nothing special in my opinion.
So then the next matchup, actually, it wasn't really much of a matchup here as Vicky Guerrero would come out. Alberto Del Rio was supposed to face Ricardo. And then Vicky Guerrero would make an announcement saying that John Cena, yes, John Cena is going to be facing Alberto Del Rio for the World Heavyweight Championship at Hell in a Cell. Now that, when I first heard of this, I just did not think it was possible. But as the day has gone on today, we saw John Cena on Sports Nation announcing that he will be at that matchup. And apparently I've seen on a Bleacher Report that the doctors cleared John Cena. I don't know what's going on here. It's very confusing, and I'm still not fully believing this John Cena return at Hell in a Cell. I feel like there's a big swerve in the mix here, but it's very interesting that Cena is coming back this early, though, if that does happen. Ricardo would pick up the sneak cover after she announced that. So, I mean, just the fact that Cena's coming back is very interesting. I'll give that a B.
Yeah, this was absolutely shocking news. I know him and myself were basically said that John Cena would return at the Royal Rumble, but when he was announced that he was coming back 3 months after his surgery, we were in complete shock, and I was in complete shock. Part of me, I would say about 80% of me is on the thing that this match is definitely going to happen, just because I've never seen WWE this adamant of publicizing and all sources coming in that John Cena will have. Well, this match will happen. So part of me just doesn't see why they would go to all this effort. But at the same time, he is coming back extremely early for this injury. We saw in 2008 when he also did it. But like Kyle said, this isn't John Cena 2008. This is John Cena 5 years later. So who knows? But the segment in general is definitely a B. I'll give it a B. But it's shocking news, and we'll wait to see.
All right, so then the next matchup we would have here, not really much of a matchup. Once again, as Zack Ryder would get his ass kicked by Fandango. Don't get the point of this whatsoever. Not anything memorable from this matchup as Fandango would hit his finisher on Zack Ryder. But we have seen a lot of Ryder on Raw lately. I guess that's an improvement from where we won't see him at all. But Fandango picks up the victory here. F.
Yeah, the match sucked, but now that we're seeing Zack Ryder more, I'm kind of digging it. I think Zack Ryder has something here that they could definitely use. But they're not, obviously, because they're having him lose to freaking Fandango. But the match itself was definitely an F. It sucked. But seeing Zack Ryder the past few weeks has been kind of cool.
So then Great Khali and Santino would face the Real Americans. Another rematch that we saw at Battleground. And once again, Cesaro would do the Cesaro swing on Great Khali, which is just a crazy thing that he does. He's got so much strength and arguably one of the strongest guys, if not the strongest guy they have in WWE today. That's probably the only thing to take away from that matchup as they would pick up the victory here via pinfall. I'll give it a D plus just because of the fact that Cesaro is just great to watch.
Yeah, there's two things I take from these matches. Number one, Cesaro needs to get away from the Real Americans. I think he has potential to be a main eventer. Obviously, you can see the crazy strength that he has. He definitely deserves to be in that upper echelon of WWE superstars. Second, Santino and Khali just need to get off the TV. They are just a waste. Hornswoggle's a waste. Even Jack Swagger's a freaking waste. They need all of them off TV. Just have Zeb Coulter and Antonio Cesaro together, and that'd be perfectly fine. But the match itself, I'm giving it an F. I already didn't want to see it at Battleground. I had to see it again on Raw.
All right, so then the main event would be The Shield taking on Cody Rhodes, Goldust, and Daniel Bryan. It's very cool to see Goldust and Cody Rhodes teaming up now, as we never saw those two team up at all throughout their careers, and they are brothers. This was a pretty solid matchup. It was a decent main event. Rollins would get the win for the Shield, though, after on Daniel Bryan, as it just hell just started to break loose. Everybody was flying everywhere. So much was going on. Shield picks up the victory here, but the thing to take up after this was Randy Orton would come out and RKO Daniel Bryan out of nowhere. He basically just came from the stands, I think. And Daniel Bryan put on a pretty good matchup here. But like I said, Randy Orton comes out with the RKO. And then that's about it. Decent main event here. This feud is still continuing. It looks like Orton and Bryan. Oh, that's already official. That's going to happen. And I honestly think Triple H versus Big Show is going to happen. I think that's a lock for Hell in a Cell. That matchup, though, I'll give it a B. It was pretty solid.
Yeah, for just doing the matchup alone and not what transpired after it, it was an alright matchup. Like I said, I love seeing the Rhodes brothers in there. Cody Rhodes is definitely in my Fave 5. I've grown to wish that he won Money in the Bank at Money in the Bank, but he did not. But I love this feud going on. I love the Shield. All three of them are just crazy talented. Daniel Bryan is too. Then Randy Orton coming out of nowhere after Triple H restarted the match. It wasn't a bad match. Chaos occurred like I probably expected what's going to happen. I give it a B. And now we get to go in what happened after, which was probably the highlight of the show.
Yeah, Triple H was ringside at that match, and then basically we'd see the Big Show come back. Apparently he was fired, but obviously not. If he has his own entrance, he's still in wrestling gear. And he comes out there, and he basically just knocks out the COO of the company, Triple H, which is very cool. It's about time Big Show did something after being treated as the WWE's bitch for the past 5 months. And it was a very good way to end Monday Night Raw, in my opinion. As, like I said earlier, I think Triple H and Big Show are going to have a match at Hell in a Cell, which will be interesting. I think Hell in a Cell is shaping up to be a pretty solid pay-per-view. We also didn't announce that Shawn Michaels is going to be the special guest referee. It was very cool to see Shawn Michaels return on Monday Night Raw. The fans, I think, could have given a better reaction. I was marking out here. But, that just is an interesting thing since that's Triple H's best friend. Who knows what's going to happen there. Raw overall, there wasn't that much of great wrestling going on, but I like the way they're headed towards Hell in a Cell. That's what I'm going to take out of this Monday Night Raw. I also like how the Big Show finally stood up for himself. Raw overall, I'll give a C+. It wasn't that bad of a show, and I'm very excited to see what is going to happen at Hell in a Cell in 3 weeks.
In regards to Shawn Michaels, I actually didn't expect it whatsoever. I thought they would just throw in another Hall of Famer that, is not very popular, and Booker T would get in, and that's just how it would go. But when Shawn Michaels' music cued, it was freaking amazing. Love Shawn Michaels. Crowd should have respected. Crowd should have been cheering for freaking days. They should have been going crazy for him, but that was great. That's A+. Big Show, like Kyle said, finally did something here. This is leading, hopefully, into a match at Hell in a Cell between those two, which would actually be interesting. It'd actually be a Big Show match I'd be interested in, which hasn't happened in a while. But yeah, I'm excited for that. Got knocked out. That was awesome. Give that segment part an A-. It's about time. I didn't think that was even going to happen. About time. Raw overall, like Kyle said, the wrestling wasn't great, but the announcement of Shawn Michaels, John Cena, Big Show knocking out Triple H, it just leads for so many things at Hell in a Cell, to where Hell in a Cell is, it's anticipated. It might be up there with Money in the Bank and SummerSlam, like Kyle said, Vince needs that money. The ratings have been pretty low. Night of Champions sucked. Battleground was a little better. So we'll see what happens here. But overall, I'm going to give Raw B- just because of the big news. So much news in one night. We'll see what happens to Hell in a Cell.
So there's the Raw review from October 7, 2013. Like and subscribe to my channel if you already are not. Comment on what you thought about Monday Night Raw down below in the comment section. And take it easy.